Welcome to WAM, the Wellness Arts and Military Podcast. We connect military communities with enriching arts programs for overall well-being. Join us to explore creativity, wellness, and resilience.
Hello and welcome to the Wellness Arts and Military Podcast. I'm your host, Gabriella Smith, and today we have Alex Minami from the Seattle Opera. Hello, Alex. How are you and who are you?
Hi, Gabby. I am doing really well. And as you said, my name's Alex. I serve as the Associate Director of Community Engagement here at Seattle Opera, which means I get to work on some really cool programs that serve a lot of members of our community, one of whom, a big part of which is the military veterans and their families.
How is the Seattle Opera connected to WAM?
We are one of the recipients of the organizational grants that WAM offers, which has been a huge benefit to our organization and the veterans that we serve. And I believe we were members of the original cohort when the WAM funding pool was created. And, actually, come to think of it, I think we were even around when there was an informal
Right.
consortium of arts programs
I
here in
forgot
the
about
Puget Sound region that would get together and talk about how we can serve members of the military community better. So we've kind of been around since the beginning.
Yeah, very pivotal. And a big part of being a part of WAM is the Veterans Choir. So if you could talk a little bit about the Veterans Choir and what it is, what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is a group that came together as part of a show that we did back in 2019. We produced a chamber opera, which is, a smaller scale opera that was about the military experience. So it told the story of the soldier who was deployed, and her unit was hit by an IED, and so the story retraces this incident and this kind of
Mm,
dreamscape that she goes through while she's in a coma, and it has this wonderful happy ending.
yeah.
Unlike many other operas, this one has a positive, uplifting, inspiring ending. And at the end of that, it called for a chorus to come out and sing the big rousing finale. And when the opera was first presented, it was actually the U.S. Army Soldiers Chorus that sang that part. They played a major role in bringing that opera together, and actually, we're still in touch with the U.S. Army Field Band and Soldiers
That's
Chorus, and
amazing.
I'll talk more about them in
Yeah.
a little bit. But here, when we decided to produce this opera in Seattle, we approached this really wonderful arts organization um, called Path with Art, and our goals aligned when we got together around this, and they helped us put together a local choir of veterans
That's
uh,
amazing.
that would uh, that would that would perform at the end of this opera. And so they rehearsed with teaching artists here at Seattle Opera, and they performed in all five of the performances of this chamber opera. And every single performance was sold out, and it was just this wonderful, wonderful experience. And so the Veterans Choir came into being for that specifically, and it was just going to be a one-off kind of um,
Oh, I didn't know that.
project that was specific to that opera. And when the opera ended, we all sat around going, "Oh, this was so much fun." Is
Yeah,
there any reason we can't just keep this
right. Going.
this program going indefinitely? And so that's what we decided to do. And shortly thereafter, the pandemic happened, and we still managed to have it work over Zoom, if you can believe. And then we were eventually able to come back in person. And so the program's been running continuously ever since 2019.
Wow, I did not know it was since 2019 because
Mhm.
when you expressed that, I was thinking of probably the newer performance that occurred because I
Oh,
actually,
yeah, right.
yeah, I actually went to a few of the veteran choir practices. I was invited by Rachel, who works at Path with Art, and it was, I can say, an amazing experience overall. Really got to connect to the veterans there. A part of that was, yeah, this other performance where they they did meet with the army band, correct? And they had
That's right.
another type of um I
Joint
guess
performance. Yeah.
story.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that was totally different than the one you just mentioned. That's great. And I know that there's another one like that coming up too, right?
There is, yeah. So we've
Yeah.
we've been fortunate to keep in contact with the U.S. Army Field Band and Soldiers Chorus, and even during the pandemic when we were doing everything on Zoom, there were occasions where they popped into our Zoom sessions and would participate in the sort of like karaoke sing-alongs that we would do over Zoom and that sort of thing. And actually, it was during the pandemic, speaking of that, we experimented with this idea of collaboratively co-writing a choral piece
Mm,
for the Veterans Choir that would be based on their input. And so this
that's what I'm
lyricist and
thinking of. Yep.
composer met with them, and they together wrote this. It was about a 4 or 5 minute long song,
Hmm.
and we couldn't really during the pandemic record it as a group. So actually the field band and soldiers chorus recorded it for us and played it back on one of these Zoom sessions. And so that was a really cool experience. And the success of that led us to try it again on a larger scale, which is the show that you saw. That was a 20-minute
Yeah.
choral piece, and by that point, everybody was back together again. They could rehearse in person, and so the Soldiers Chorus already happened to be coming. It was on their schedule to come through Seattle
Hmm.
around that time, and so we added ourselves to their schedule, and they were kind enough to come by and jointly uh, present this piece that was based on input from 12
Wow.
different Veterans Choir members then.
Goodness. How was the process for that? How long did it take to kind of get the information from all 12 to create a collective piece?
Oh, it took a good long time, and and speaking of the pandemic, that actually threw a spanner in the work because
Mhm.
key people involved in this whole project ended up coming down with
Oh,
COVID in the midst of this, and so it was all the same kind of frustration that everybody had to deal with back then. But yeah, so they had hour-long interviews with all 12 of those participants, and it was up to the lyricist then, who is the same librettist, by the way, who wrote the text for The Falling and the Rising, that chamber opera that we did in 2019. And that chamber opera, I should mention, was similarly based on interviews with real-life veterans, whom
wow.
he interviewed at
Mhm.
Walter Reed and elsewhere. So this is
Ongoing.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's part of this lyricist practice to do
Right.
this and kind of
Yeah.
collaboratively write these narratives. So that's what he did for us for this choral piece, and then the composer, I forget how many months we gave the composer to set set it all to music, but interestingly, that composer was also one of the performers in the chamber opera in 2019. He was the Colonel
Very.
character, but he's also a composer, and he's actually really in high demand
Yeah.
these days. So we're really lucky to be able to snag him,
No,
write that piece.
yeah, I think about it as for composition, trying to properly um take the stories of others and write it in a way that everyone feels good about it. That takes a
Mhm.
special person. It's so impactful for the community. What do you think motivates them, the Veterans Choir? What motivates Seattle Opera to continue these projects?
That's a great question. I think I think part of it is that the program itself has proven itself to be such a success that it's just a no-brainer at this point that we
Yeah.
keep doing it. and we're all able to play into our strengths. All of the different organizations that have a hand in, well, thinking specifically of our partner organization in all of this, Path with Art.
Mm-hmm.
They take a lot off our plate because they already have a process for recruitment and registration, and so it works out. More than that, though, I think in terms of the impact that it makes, you hear a lot of people talking about how art changes lives, and how um, the need for creative expression is key to our health and well-being, and um, all of these phrases which start to sound cliche after a while, they get repeated so much. But for me, the nice thing about being in the position that I'm in getting to work with all of our community programs, is that I get to see that with my own two eyes. These aren't just words to me.
Yeah.
I can see the impact that it makes on our veterans choir members. I can see how much pride they derive from participating in this program and getting to perform in front of hundreds of people and getting to perform alongside the U.S. Army Field Band and Soldiers Chorus. The fact that they keep coming week after week after week and doing these 2 hour long rehearsals that are at an odd time in the middle of the day on a Thursday, and they show up to, we recently had a performance up in Linwood, believe it or not. There's a
Wow.
really cool organization up, actually they're also a WAM
Oh,
grantee,
look at that.
Operation Art to Heal,
Oh,
invited
yes.
us to go up and perform for them, and all of our veterans choir members trekked up there to Linwood and gave this really great performance. So, that kind of speaks for itself in terms of the value that people find in a program like this,
For
I
sure.
think.
Oh,
Hmm.
definitely. And that kind of goes to, how art and the military community have intersected within this veterans choir. So to go a little bit further, like you were saying, with Operation Paint to Heal and Path with Art, how do you
Hmm.
envision the WAM cohort, all of these different entities bridging that gap between military service, creative expression for these service members, veterans, and families?
Yeah, I think it's huge. People don't really um, think about how these programs meet a very important need that exists in the veterans community after they make that transition back to civilian life. It's a really tough transition, I know, for a lot of people. We've all gone through the trainings about battle mind versus the home mind, mentality shift that a lot of veterans struggle with. But there's kind of a certain spiritual side of that. I don't mean spiritual in a religious sense, but like the
Yeah,
human spirit, the creative spirit
right.
that's in each of us also needs to be fed. And there's a need for community, and there's a need for finding something in which you take a lot of pride. And I think that's what the WAM cohort, that's sort of the gap
Oh,
that the WAM cohort fills in this whole process.
oh,
And
that's
then
great sentiment.
to kind of keep on that um, thread while I'm thinking of it,
Hmm.
the choir meets a different kind of need there, because the choir setting is extremely structured.
Yes.
And there's, to a certain extent, I think it replicates military culture in a way that I think a lot of veterans miss. And that's actually what being in a choir is kind of like. There's hierarchy, there's chain of
You have your
commands,
parts that you
you
have
have
to.
your part, there's
That's
only
right.
one correct way to sing it.
Yep.
You're all doing it as a group, you're all working together toward this common mission. And it never occurred to us. That wasn't part of the design of the
Right.
program when we first came up with it. But I think part of the reason why it seems to have resonated with so many people is just for that reason, that it actually in a lot of ways
Mhm.
replicates some of the military culture, aspects of military culture that people miss once they have transitioned out of it.
Right. And, even going into them being able to be a part of the composition process,
Hmm.
I think has some form of being able to be proud of being a part of a choir where you can then sing the songs and perform the songs that are about your life, about
Hmm.
your past, but in a way that encompasses not just you, but other veterans and other service members. And as I recall, you said it's about like 12 people. So it's still pretty tight knit. So these
Hmm.
people are working together, probably talking amongst themselves about their past stories to see how they can fold it in together. So that is another part of the structure is working together as a team to then create a final project.
That's huge. And that was just the 12 who took part in the interview
Right.
process. There's, the group as a whole thing. It's amazing that we don't really have to worry about recruitment numbers.
Yeah.
They just show up. But no, we're up to like 18 to 20 who come pretty regularly.
Amazing. You had mentioned that you were kind of go back to the new project that's happening
Oh,
with
yes,
the
that's
Army
right.
Band. Yeah, so if you could
So,
tell us a little bit about that.
yes, this is really exciting. This is thanks to another funding opportunity that we received, which is the Creative Forces grant from the National Endowment for the Arts.
Mhm.
And we've kept in touch with the U.S. Army Field Band and Soldiers Chorus, as I mentioned. And so they approached us a while back. That is actually kind of key to the story of the commission project that we did a couple of years ago in 2023.
Mm.
They want to keep doing more pieces that are like The Falling and the Rising, that are based on the stories of real people, and they call it the Portraits of Service, sharing the military experience through the medium of music is kind of the purpose of that. And so that's what the first choral piece was meant to be a part of, that Portraits of Service initiative. And that piece, it was 20 minutes long, as I mentioned, and it was based on 12 different people's experiences. So it had to, by nature, be a little abstracted, and it included verbatim quotations from all 12 of the interviews. So, to a certain extent, it was this like beautiful poem
Right.
that came out of that experience. So
Yeah.
for this next project, we thought we might make it a little bit more concrete
Mm.
and focused on specific experiences, in a way that, you might expect from a kind of operatic storytelling medium. There's still going to be choral pieces, but they'll have solo passages so that they can represent certain characters, as it were.
Mm.
And we've selected three members actually four technically. We're going to do three pieces, but
Nice.
the third piece will combine two choir members' experiences. And so the lyricist is going to start working with them to shape these texts, and then we're going to have a team of actually three different composers work on each one of them. Our goal is to perform those jointly with the Soldiers Chorus again this upcoming March. So
Oh
we're working on a
man.
tight time frame here, but I
Yeah,
think we
that
could do
for
it.
sure. I think you can
Yes.
too. That's great. And yeah, like you mentioned before, kind of the previous one, the 20-minute, I remember distinctly it was during that 20 minutes, there was this time frame where it sounded like there were all these different voices weaving
Yes.
together, almost like an
Kind of
orchestra
cascading.
starting. Yeah, it was
Mhm.
beautiful. And so I can't wait to see just the change from that to this. You got three different, or you said four different members, right?
Right.
Technically, yeah, working on it. So, man, are those members specifically taking extra hours to work with the lyricist?
Yep. So
Yeah.
they'll undergo a collaborative interview process with the lyricist, just like they would have done for the 20-minute choral piece that we did back then, and it's the same kind of process that the lyricist used when he was writing The Falling and the Rising. This is Jerry Dye. is
Okay.
his name. He's he's just so brilliant at doing this,
It wasn't
and so skilled at creating an environment in these interviews in which they the participants feel totally comfortable sharing whatever they want to share.
yeah,
And he's such a wonderful listener and so
interpreter.
skilled at taking the big themes that they touch upon in the interviews and bringing those out and kind of adapting them poetically. I can't wait to see how these pieces shape up. I think it's
I
going to be
am
really, really special.
too. Likewise. Well, that is so exciting. I am wondering, is there anything occurring this year that people can attend, or is there anything even for just the Seattle Opera that people might be interested in?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, there's a date has yet to be chosen for the joint performance with the Soldiers Chorus, but that would be around late March. So um, if you go to our website, seattleopera.org/veterans choir, I hope I gave you the right URL. If you Google Seattle Opera Veterans Choir,
Mhm.
it'll
We'll put it in the
come up.
social
And
media
yeah,
post too.
so we keep all the performance dates updated. On there, you can also see a list of all the performances that the Veterans Choir has done in the past. Typically, we also do um, performances around Veterans Day and around Memorial Day. We actually had a Memorial Day performance at Folklife Festival. We've been doing that every year for the past, whenever we were allowed to come back in person after the pandemic, so the last 3 years or so. And Path with Art also invites us to all sorts of performance opportunities that they organize. So yeah, we'll keep that website updated, and if people are interested, we would love to have you come and hear them do their thing. They're sounding better than ever these days. They've always been good, but they are now working with the Seattle Opera chorus master, Michaela Calzaretta,
Hmm.
and she was kind enough to offer her brilliance as a choral conductor
Hmm.
to serve the Veterans Choir, and she has whipped them into shape. They are singing really complex pieces now. They're singing in multiple parts. They're singing everything from Mozart to patriotic songs to Bob Dylan and all of this, and they're singing it with such a high level of precision and musicality that whoever comes to listen to them is going to be really, really impressed.
Oh, I have to say, just walking into the Seattle Opera itself with them, I felt like there was a sense of professionalism and formality, but also it was welcoming. That feeling of you can come as you are. Um,
Hmm. Yeah,
it,
absolutely.
it's wonderful. So yeah, I do hope that people go to see these events, and I will put that link in the chat. So glad to hear about more that is coming up for the Veterans Choir. And again, we can't thank you enough, Alex, for supporting the military community and being a part of the WAM
Oh,
program.
it's my absolute pleasure. It's one of my favorite parts of my job, by far. It's wonderful.
Awesome. Well, if there's any parting words that you might have, or anything else,
Oh, only it's I said it's a cliche, but art changes lives. That's
that's
the
right.
message I'd like to leave with everybody. So thank you to WAM for everything that you do to make those words more than just words.
You too. Well, thank you so much, Alex, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. You too.
Hello, and welcome to the Wellness, Arts, and Military Podcast. I am here with Natasha Terry. She is a SAP grantee. So, hello, Natasha. Who are you and what do you currently do?
Hi, thank you so much for having me here. I'm a multimedia artist, and you'll see me working with a lot of wildlife imagery. Recently, I started doing portraiture again after many years away from that. So I'm enjoying getting back into depicting people as well. But those are my main paths of expression.
Amazing. And I think I saw on your Instagram too, you kind of work with pottery, right? So, with your hands, or is that a different area of your art disciplinary?
What I like to say is if somebody is willing to teach me any kind of art medium, I'm
Ooh.
there and I am very happy to learn.
Hmm.
Ceramics have been a very long-term desire for me to be able to participate with, but it's not the most accessible medium for people who are financially restricted.
Right. Mm.
Um,
Mhm.
So getting to use the grant this particular cycle was really exciting for me. And I finally took the leap and signed up for a course at the local community center.
Yay.
And
Awesome.
last year, I was showing some of my work at Base Camp Studios, and I met a ceramic artist there who also does wildlife art. And so she actually hooked me up with a box of clay then.
Hmm.
And I started seeing what I could do, and her pieces are so big and gorgeous. Her name is Bonnie Barker.
Okay.
But then I was able to take some of that momentum from connecting with her and then
Mm.
get more training inside the studio. So I just got a lot of pieces out of the kiln. It's pretty
Yeah.
exciting.
That is. And you say the movement, that kind of makes me think about on your website, you describe art making as a rich practice. Can you kind of expand on that idea and how that moves you in the studio?
Yeah. Well, something I've struggled a lot with, and I think some veterans may relate,
Mm,
when you've been through very extreme stress, the body tends to like curl in on itself in a kind of way.
hmm.
And I'm sure this just happens to regular civilians and everybody as well, but there's an intensity that we're inside of military culture. And there's a lot of self-denial
Hmm.
in order to make sure that you're following in line with this standard of your projected image, your behavior, how you hold your body, how you use your voice. It's
Yeah.
very scripted. And coming into that experience as a young, very uh, passionate and
Hmm.
hormonal teenager, I'm just going to say that
For sure.
that that was a complete 180 for me.
Mm,
And in some ways, it was interesting because I'm a very curious person, and to try on such a different way of being was a challenge and somewhat fascinating to me.
hmm.
But I didn't understand the larger socio-political context of anything I was doing at the time. Um, so all of that said, I have found that art making is the one thing that kind of brings me back from a depth of heaviness. And it helps me to look outside of myself and connect with something that brings in different feelings. It could be a lightness of being or a specific kind of emotion or
Mm,
even the way that an animal moves its body. I really feel that in myself if I'm looking at an animal for hours and then constructing it out of clay or painting
yeah.
it. So I have learned a lot about how to unwind one's own constrictions, whether they're physical, psychological, emotional,
Yeah.
through different arts processes.
That's awesome. And, kind of going back to the animals. animals seem to be a reoccurring subject in your work. What draws you to them? I mean, you kind of just explained it, right? So, but yeah,
Yeah.
what kind of draws you to them?
Well, animals have always been really close to me. And I'm not sure if that's partly because of the people I was around or
Mhm.
growing up with animals in my family. I mean, we had like a turtle, rats and dogs and a cat and birds.
I
My brother
appreciate
had a
you saying you
snake.
had rats because I had mice. So at one point or another, I know the nocturnal animal experience.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. But you're
Well, a funny story there. I I actually snuck pet rats onto the military base and hid them inside my dorm room behind a giant canvas. I was like,
right.
I'm a painter. They won't question this, you
That
know?
must have been hard to hide at night with their little wheels, but that's a great story. So
It's
animals have
really
been with you even through the military. Yes.
absolutely. Um, I mean, I was a young person. I was desperate for comfort and something alive and
Mm.
sweet to connect
Yeah.
to. Um,
Uh,
so I grew up trying to help animals. I don't know. It's well intentioned, but I don't know that I actually succeeded. But in my family, it was kind of modeled. If you see an injured bird, you pick it up and you take it home and you nurture it.
yeah, yeah.
And that's actually what I named my studio after. It's Sparrow Song Studio.
Oh, I'm now getting it. That's amazing. I love the backstory.
Yeah, I found a little injured sparrow and sat with
Oh,
it for hours in the rain, and I just felt so connected to it. And
wow.
um, I'm just kind of a weirdo, I think,
Caring,
because
though, it's a part. I can definitely feel the care and yeah, the love and the passion, like you said.
yeah, there's just so much innocence in nature. I know there's a lot of violence too, but it's violence within a larger ecological balance.
Hmm.
It's not violence like you have inside of the human world, which is a
Right.
bit more treacherous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Innocence, like I get that, the innocence of it, like the newborn bunnies right now, right? That are all over.
yeah. So I guess maybe the main thing is I felt like I could endlessly connect with animals and get kind of lost in the world of the small beings. Even, I would play with ants and spiders and stuff.
I mean, spiders, I mean, I don't know about that one for me at least, but that's good for you. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, and that kind of makes me think the caring and wanting to work with animals. You also work with others. So you have a background in art education and providing workshop skills. Can you tell us about what you do in these workshops with others?
So I offer a variety of things, and it tends to be seasonal.
Mm,
Sometimes I will do a workshop that combines some kind of emotional processing or a deep social inquiry with art making practices.
hmm.
And that way we leverage the different ways in which art is able to be a playground for really important inquiries that we have, whether they're working through internal content
Hmm.
or working through different situations that are happening in our life that we can kind of fashion inside of an arts container
Yeah.
and practice engaging it in different ways. And I really enjoy doing one-on-one mentoring with people as well,
Hmm. Has
which, yeah.
has the one-on-ones been different than working with, larger groups? Like, why do you choose the one-on-ones?
So the one-on-ones are really deep compared to what can happen in a workshop. It's more of a shared collective experience. And then people also get to share the personal insights they're having, which tend to spark something in somebody else. And it becomes like this webbing of cross-pollination. The individual work is we're taking time to understand the context that the person is living inside of as
Mm,
one of the very first things that we do. And we're talking about the social structure, the family structure that they're inside of, the professional, and then the emotional and individual nature and all of these things, because all of that influences how you move through the world as a creative being. And then each person is going to have a really specific desire of what they want to come into contact with. And it could be purely personal exploration, doing a really deep investigation or experimentation to something where
mm,
maybe you normally wouldn't have the container or the space or the support to do so.
mm-hmm.
But I also like going into how do we bring our aliveness into professional projects
Ooh.
so that we don't get engulfed by them and lose the spark of our own being and feel like we're submitting to something that's actually not good for us.
Right. Making it still about like the main reason you're doing it, not forgetting that. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
I I know that you went to Pratt this grant cycle and that you also did probably workshops yourself with others. Did that play a role in how you're working with others or teach you new things to do with others? And maybe you can even tell us a little bit about that studio time, about the small books that you made during the grant cycle.
Yeah, well, I would say it goes much further back than Pratt. Pratt is
Mm,
one of the most recent things that I participated in. But I
mm.
started exploring creative process itself with my friend Brooke McNamara, who's based out of Boulder, Colorado, and also Rachel Blackman, who's in the UK.
Oh,
I
wow.
was taking courses with them, and I met Brooke through a Buddhist Sangha that I participated with shortly after coming out of the military. So it's been a really weird
Yeah.
trajectory. And so I have arts education from participating in places like Gage Academy of Art at
Mm.
Pratt, at Watts Atelier in San Diego, Encinitas.
Oh, cool.
Um, and then I also did a little bit of training in Colorado. But the kind of psycho-spiritual underbelly of that is my contemplative psychology education. I actually studied psychology for a while and then teaching, and then I spent time with interdisciplinary arts and did a decolonial art praxis.
Wow.
So,
You have a lot under your belt. And you know what? Actually looking at your sort of like your CV online, I did see that you had so many different layers of education under your belt. Is there one that really stood out to you?
oh my goodness. I
It's a hard
think
one.
Yeah, I've had a very unique education. I had probably the most prominent in that regard would be at Goddard, getting to explore ancestry as part
Ooh.
of how do I understand my art making
Yeah,
and identity within that larger context. So that's really helped form some of the ways that I work with people. And then when I studied psychology, it had a deep contemplative foundation to it. So I use a lot of different contemplative practices in my work as well. And those kinds of combinations aren't very common inside of university education. So,
for sure. And then for the small books that you created this grant cycle, was that also before the studio? Have you been doing that for a while, or was that at Pratt that you started?
yeah, well, it's something The first little books I made were in elementary school. So this is something I've always been really interested in. And when I was at Goddard, one of my projects was to make a poetry book combined with
Mm.
my art.
Yeah.
And so I did a lot of prototyping, but I never ended up getting into the actual printing process.
Oh, okay.
So when I was at Pratt, I got to take a book arts course and see what are the different formats to hand make a book so it's a little bit more
Mhm.
personalized.
Yeah.
And I love being able to like stitch through your own pages and make your own cover and you know how luscious it would be to make my own paper or something. I don't know if I'm going to take it that far, but
Yeah, definitely. I wish, man, that sounds like something I would do because I used to junk journal as a kid
um,
where I would, put things into a book and make it a your own scrapbook. But to actually make the book, man, that's gotta have a really nice feeling at the end of it to say like it's fully mine. Have you made multiple books or are you starting out with just one? Like, do you have to, are there themes to them, I guess I should say? Or is it more like an open expression of just things that come to you?
usually any project that I'm doing has a pretty specific
Mm.
intent. In general, if I'm making an animal, it's because it has a quality that feels important and it might be instructional for me in some kind of lesson I'm learning at a time in my life.
Hmm.
Like, when does connecting with a jaguar really make sense versus an owl? You know?
Ooh, my favorite owl. I love owls.
Great.
But yeah, definitely I could see how it transitions over time to be these different animals. So was it just animals in the book then, or was it additional things?
The I'm working on one small book right now called Talisman. It might change, but the intent of it was to be a kind of talisman. And the reason a book format works in an interesting way is it enables sequence.
Mm,
So you only see one thing at a time and you see it in a particular order. And that's where the symbolism lies. That's a lot harder to do on a singular
yes.
2D artwork. So as you turn each page, it signifies a different layer into my own being. And they're structured a particular way. Some of it is plant life, some of it is animals. Um, I, I think there's a stone in there. I used my own eye as part of it. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
a
really cool.
way, yeah, that I can um through symbolism
Mm.
subtly reveal or conceal in a structured way.
Yeah. And, could you maybe even describe what a talisman is? Like, what is a talisman? I guess. Yes, I know. For me, at least, I would like to know.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's part of why I made the book because somebody told me, "Oh, you should try making a talisman." It's like, well, what does that even mean?
Right? Yeah.
And so how I took it to mean when I reinterpreted it for what is accessible uh, within what's natural for me to create, I felt like talismans have to do with maybe protection or invoking something really specific. And
Got it. Yeah.
so I used very particular animal symbols to like invoke this is the kind of protection I want at this layer
Yeah.
of my being, you know?
I get it now. That's amazing. I really like that, especially how you express like the eye. It's kind of like the way into the soul. And this, I'm sure there's all these other things as to why you put in the rock or the I think there was also like a flower in there when I looked online. Yeah, like it it was beautiful. I definitely think that people should go check out your Instagram. So you got to add that at the end.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
yeah, but I guess last but not least, what's your hope for the future of Sparrow Song Studio and
Hmm.
the community that you're nurturing with it?
Well, this year is kind of big for me because I'm moving out of working with more of a private community into being more publicly available. So I'm going to be teaching at Path with Art, which is a nonprofit downtown this summer. And I'll be supporting the queer community there for this particular season. I'm also connecting with the Center for Spiritual Living about how do we integrate certain kinds of spiritual perspective with art making or making the art in service of something
Mhm.
that is values based or socially supportive.
Right.
And then I'm also going to continue this familial legacy of watercolor
Oh,
painting.
fun. Wow, there's so many.
And
Love it.
yeah, my grandma was a watercolorist and she taught me as a child. So I'm going to offer a watercolor course at the Montlake Community Center in the fall. But in a general sense, I want to offer a space for people that feels consistently very holistic, that they can come and learn technical skills, but they can also just come and be in a really intimate connection with their self and whoever else is available within the group if it's a group setting, so that you're feeding multiple parts of yourself at once and not having to like leave a bunch of yourself out of the experience, which sometimes happens when you're training in something.
For sure.
Um, yeah, and I,
Congratulations. That just sounds like you were out in the world, you were doing things as a teaching artist, and we're always working with teaching artists, and you have been a part of the grant. So I have to say thank you for that. And your light, I can definitely feel through even the podcast. So congrats again on all the things you're doing.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And I guess, is there any events coming up or links that people should know about to get in touch with you?
Pretty much the courses I just talked about. If you want to learn about them, you can send me a message at sparrowinseattle@gmail.com. Visit Instagram Sparrow Song Studio, or my website is sparrowsongstudio.com, and there's a way to subscribe to my newsletter there or to send me a note or see what's going on. Um, but if people have any questions or inspired to understand more of what I'm doing, which it's it's so much to express. I know it's probably too much for this space, but I really care about um, tending that fire beneath what people really, really care about and helping them find a way to bring their innermost
So,
sorry, it feels really tender to me, but know that somebody out there is going to respect the sacred inside of them and
yeah,
would love to help create a bridge for that.
that's a beautiful sentiment. I am so happy to end on that note. So, thank you so much, Natasha, for being here today. And if there's any last words you'd like to say?
Yeah, actually, I just want to say this program has been really life-changing for me as a veteran.
Oh,
And I hope that more people come and support it to have longevity.
yeah.
The way that it took me from just really scrappily surviving and barely getting to participate with the arts to feeling like I was seen and taken seriously and being invested in was really a turning point for me in my life. So I want to thank y'all for just being an incredible team and just helping to make any of this happen in the first place. It's incredible.
Thank you so much. That means so much and resonates with me because we are always just hoping to see the artists succeed and strive and be passionate. And again, their well-being is like number one. So we love seeing that. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you. It's so nice to be with you.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to WAM, the Wellness, Arts, and Military Podcast, where we're more than just finger paints. Stay connected with us for more inspiring stories and resources. And remember, art and well-being are a powerful pair.